Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Finance. Questioning for the department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. Member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you all the staff in the department for being here today. The Minister and the NDP government are stringing Manitobans along 3 months at a time for their fuel tax holiday, not allowing Manitobans to budget further in the future. So can the Minister please tell me on January 1st what the new fuel tax rate will be, and will it be returning to 14 cents?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to the Critic, to this first day together in committee here. Looking forward to the conversation. Appreciate the question about our fuel tax holiday, which is something that our government is very proud to have brought forward to help save Manitobans money. We, very shortly after coming into government, took this step, this very important step, as a means of demonstrating our commitment to responding to the affordability challenges that Manitobans were facing. We know that energy costs were something that Manitobans were seeing escalate in a big way in recent years. And very quickly after coming into government, we took action in response to that with our fuel tax holiday. And we know that this has just been welcomed in every single corner of the province. When I've had the good fortune of touring the province, whether it was for our budget consultations or whether it was just sort of traveling around, visiting communities, meeting with stakeholders, one thing I've heard, maybe more than other areas where stakeholders have thanked us for actions, but maybe one area more than all others is in terms of our affordability work, and specifically the fuel tax holiday is something that has really resonated with Manitobans. I think one group of Manitobans that's been especially impacted by the fuel tax holiday have been those living in rural and northern communities. Communities like the one that I know you hail from, Critic, or that the Critic hails from. Where folks are really, much more so than folks living in some of our urban areas, are forced to drive very long distances to get to work, to take their kids to sports practices and otherwise. And so We know just how much it's meant for rural communities. We also know that businesses have benefited in a really big way from the fuel tax holiday. It has had a tremendous impact for many businesses that are forced to rely on their vehicles, and this has really helped them in a difficult time. And businesses are facing a lot of the same challenges that other Manitobans are facing, in that their costs of doing business have been going up, and they're experiencing greater challenges, just as many other Manitobans are facing, as I'm sure the critic appreciates. And that's why I think they're receiving this fuel tax so favorably as well. And we are seeing statistically, in terms of the distribution, we know that businesses are seeing a lot of those benefits, and that those are going a long way to helping them to grow, to create jobs, and do the important work that they do. Another group that we hear from that we know have benefited in a big way are municipalities, who have a lot of fuel costs relating to their operations and the services that they provide to their residents. And the fuel tax holiday has helped them to, in a big way, reduce their costs. And those are costs that we would expect that in many ways those cost reductions will ultimately, in the long run, be passed down. And so those are just some of the groups that we've been able to hear from, and to really get a good sense of the impacts. And we've heard that loud and clear from so many. Something that came up just, it was last week, we heard the Stats Canada data that really reinforced the impacts of the fuel tax holiday. And that Stats Canada data reflected that Manitoba had a 0.8% inflation increase in September, which is among the lowest in Canada. But one of the most exciting parts of that report was that it specifically called out the fact that we shaved off 0.4% from that inflation rate directly as a result of that fuel tax holiday. So that has created, again, a huge impact. When you're talking about a 0.4% reduction on inflation, we're talking about a huge impact, really moving the needle for so many people across the province. In terms of the path ahead, as I've said before in the House and in committee with your predecessor, the critic prior, we will be carefully monitoring the direction of the economy, carefully monitoring CPI data in the months ahead. We're dead set on ensuring we improve affordability and continuing to do that. And we're going to keep a close eye on that data to make sure that we make the right decision on a go-forward basis.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. Such a simple question and no answer from the minister. So perhaps I'll shift the way I'm asking the question. What revenue does the minister expect to generate from January 1st to March 31st of 2025 from the fuel tax? I recognize there's varying factors with commodity prices and crude oil prices. However, as the government can forecast losses, they certainly can forecast revenues as well, as has always been the case.
Before I proceed further, I just wanted to share that for all questions and answers, I would be indicating when 30 seconds are left. So everybody knows to wrap up. Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Appreciate the question from the critic. Now, as I understood it, the question was about prospective costs of the measure from this upcoming January till March 31st. Right. So appreciate the question, and I'll state we won't be making any announcements today about how we're moving forward. As I said in my earlier answer, we're focused on affordability and we're focused on broader economic indicators to help us determine how we're going to move forward beyond December 31st. So far, as the critic will know, we're very proud to have extended this fuel tax holiday many times, and December 31st will take us to a full year. And that's a full year of savings that Manitobans will have gained from that. We know the average family, as we printed in the budget, was slated to gain, I think it was about $250 for an average family over a 6-month period. So knowing that we moved we moved to extend it for initially another 3 months and then a further 3 months to a full year, we know that the average family, thanks to this measure, is going to save approximately $500. That is a huge amount of money for an average family in this province. And I know that the critic can appreciate that, the importance of helping Manitobans during this time when we're facing elevated prices all over, whether it's food prices or housing prices. Energy and fuel prices are something that have really been hammering Manitobans for a long time. And so, the fact that we were able to extend it, and to do that in a way that was fiscally responsible and that we're managing that in a way that reflects our government's focus on, again, good fiscal stewardship, has meant that Manitobans are again going to see a significant benefit, more dollars in their pocket, which means more opportunities to take the kids out for a treat to a restaurant, or more opportunities to do things that maybe they couldn't do over the last 7.5 years under the previous government. Further on the fuel tax, one thing that I do appreciate the importance, and I think the member is supportive of this measure overall in terms of the benefits that it's bringing to Manitobans. But one thing that I want to raise clearly is that we didn't see this type of initiative for 7.5 years. We heard a lot of talk, and I appreciate the member opposite wasn't there for those 7.5 years. So I'll hold her mostly, or at least partly, accountable for this with her association with the current opposition crew there. Of course, she wasn't there, but I'll say for that 7.5 year period, we heard a lot of talk about a desire to make life more affordable, ideas about that. We didn't see a lot of action. And so I do find it interesting in the House, to hear talk about what we should be doing or what we could be doing when ultimately the members opposite and the opposition, when they were in government, didn't take this action. They refused to do it. They talked about wanting to save people money on energy. They expressed concern about federal charges that are being brought down, but they've never taken any action. They refuse to do that. So I think it is hard. It's hard to, I'm assuming for the opposition to be able to square that, we came in and instantly took action on something that they refused to do for a long time. So we're proud of that work. In terms of the specific question, again, the member's asking for the costs associated with this measure if it were to be implemented at a future date. We won't be talking about that because, as I've stated, there has yet to be a determination as to whether we will continue. That will be based on, again, economic data and decisions yet to be made. But in terms of the costs, I would invite her to look at the budget documents. There's a forecasted cost associated with the fuel tax holiday printed in here, which was, of course, for a 6-month period. But I think it's fair to say that in the future, she could get a good, decent sense of what a 3-month stretch would cost by prorating the number that we printed in budget.
Thank you, Minister. Member from Midland.
Thank you. 5 minutes for a really simple question yet again. And I will refer to page 10 that the minister is referring to under summary review and fuel taxes, where they have budgeted $159 million for fuel tax revenue. So does that continue to still be the projected revenue for the government on the excise fuel tax?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Again, I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to talk about the fuel tax holiday, something we know that, again, is just continues to help Manitobans every single time they go to the pump. That is something that, again, I know I and my colleagues continue to hear a lot about, which is the major benefits that families feel every time they go to the gas station. And it's something that I think helps Manitobans not only in just with broader affordability challenges, but one of the crunches that we know families are facing are those month-to-month expenses, the bills like those are the day-to-day costs that Manitobans face. And that's one of the real benefits of the fuel tax holiday, is that it's not just like the benefits that Manitobans are receiving from our tax cuts, whether they look at the basic personal exemption increase, which is one of our tax cuts that I know are going a long way to help Manitobans, or our bracket changes that are going a long way to help Manitobans. Those are important changes that are putting dollars in Manitobans' pockets for sure. But those tax changes, of course, help us typically, at the end of the year. Of course, there are impacts from those changes on, in some ways, for some Manitobans in terms of their biweekly checks. So there's some exceptions to that. But you've got those big benefits that we've brought in through those tax changes that help us, at tax time especially. But this measure is so wonderful because it's every time you head to the pump. Every single time you get that $20 bill in your pocket that you can, again, drive off with the family, go treat your kids to McDonald's or whatever it is that you want to do with your family to take those savings, maybe put it in your savings account, whatever it is. It's that real day-to-day saving that Manitobans are able to do. And I think that reflects one of the main differences between our party and the opposition. And that is a genuine connection and understanding to the realities that working Manitobans face every single day in this province. I think about my community of St. James, which is a community that I am unbelievably proud to represent. It's a working class community. It's Manitobans working in high-vis gear. These are, regular construction worker type folks, people who are building things in this province. When I talk to them, I know just how important this measure is, and they feel that. And I think when they think about the changes that we've brought in such short order, they see a government that understands them. They see a government that is working for them and that is listening very intently to the realities that they're facing. And unfortunately, that's not the way things were for a very long time. We had instead a government that was focused on, first of all, cuts to any number of areas of government, especially, of course, healthcare, education, municipalities, childcare. I could go on and on and on and on. But one thing we know they weren't focused on in any way was making life more affordable. And there's a very long list of things that I have an opportunity to speak about in the House, where we can talk about this at length, which is really the decisions that the last government made to make life more expensive. Whether that was raising taxes on renters, whether it was just continuing to apply fuel taxes during a time when people were facing ever increasing inflation on energy costs. That was their record. So the fact that Manitobans now have a government that they can trust, that they know is listening to them, and that took action here is something I know myself, my colleagues, Premier are incredibly proud of. And we're gonna keep making life more affordable and keep doing that important work. The question that was specifically asked, aside from the broader discussion around fuel tax holiday, is what our projected revenues will be. And we're not here today to talk about revenue projections. So that will, be revealed, or we'll be able to reveal more information in a future update as government.
Minister's time has expired. Member for Midland.
What took me 10 seconds to figure out, the minister consulted with his staff for 3 minutes. He took 5 minutes to respond. It would be around $80 million. This was a very simple question on projected revenues of what the excise fuel tax will be. So I'm going to just shift gears on that. In light of the ongoing discussions around personal income taxes and the phase out of exemptions for those above a certain income threshold, starting at $200,000, I'm wondering if the minister has had an opportunity to review any comparisons of the personal income taxes paid by Manitobans subsequent to his budget 24-25, and what kind of personal income taxes those same Manitobans would have been paying had he followed the same basic personal exemptions the former PCs had implemented.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the question about the impacts of our tax measures. And, this gives me a great opportunity just to briefly shout out folks who probably will not in any way want to be shouted out. But I just want to thank the amazing team, many of which are sitting at the back and rightfully staring at their phones, waiting for some kind of question or support request. But we've got an amazing team in the finance department, and especially the folks that support us on taxation, revenues. It's really an unbelievable group of folks. So I want to thank them and shout them out right now, and just really let them know how much we appreciate their efforts in helping us and do the important work we're doing of helping to lower costs for Manitobans. The question that was asked seems to have been focused on, what are the projected impacts of the tax reductions that we've brought in versus, I guess, the idea is the hypothetical plan that the PCs are saying they were going to bring forward, or an idea of what they were going to bring forward. I'm not exactly sure what they were intending, so I can just speak to what I know we did here, which was to bring forward some really impactful tax changes that have put more money in the pockets of thousands and thousands and thousands of Manitobans. So one of those measures, which the critic will be very familiar with, because I've had so many opportunities to talk about the good work, the impacts that it's had, are the homeowner affordability tax credit, which is a $1,500 tax credit that, for a huge number of Manitobans, is going to eliminate their school taxes entirely. And I'm guessing, again, for the critic, in Midland, I haven't studied the data for that particular community, but we know in a lot of rural communities, this is a measure that is bound to make life vastly more affordable for homeowners. And again, not just in rural communities, but communities across the province. The straight $1,500 credit has the benefit of, really helping, especially first-time homeowners who are getting into homeownership. Maybe they've been facing, growing challenges due to those nasty federal interest rates, those Bank of Canada rates that we're fortunately finally starting to see come down, which will help a lot. And I know I was celebrating along with a lot of others when we heard about that 50 basis point cut recently. Knock on wood, we're going to see another one in the next, is this real wood, Chair? I think it is. We're going to see another one in the not too distant future to help, again, reduce the costs of mortgages and financing homes for Manitobans. But this measure is something that is really transformational for so many folks in this province. And so that measure, of course, wasn't our only affordability measure that we brought in with the budget. We had a long list of 21 ways to save, but within that 21 ways, we had another set of tax measures. The bracket changes, which we brought in, which increased those brackets for thresholds, which meant that Manitobans are taxed at a lower rate on a greater percentage of their earnings, as well as the basic personal exemption increase. And I know, the members opposite have tried extensively since the government has changed hands to claim credit for those measures. But again, as government, we enacted them. And that's a testament to our commitment to Manitobans, our understanding of the challenges that they face. And look, we know that, again, finally, there's a government here that's listening and that recognize those challenges. And I think that 21 Ways to Save and the specific tax measures that we brought in to lower that tax burden for Manitobans, including responding to the tax hike that the PCs placed on renters of all people, which are, again, seniors, people with disabilities, people whose incomes generally remain static. They jacked their taxes by $175 we took measures to lower tax burden for Manitobans, and we're very proud of it.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
Thank you, and I invite the minister to come to my constituency and talk to my constituents anytime, and they would tell you that they would have been far better off sticking with the PC plan when it comes to affordability measures. The PCs reduced the PST by 1%. They introduced the renter's tax credit, and they phased out the education property tax. But I think the minister is misunderstanding my question, so I'll just answer it for him. Manitobans would be paying less in income taxes had the NDP followed the basic personal exemption plan that the PCs had introduced and was moving forward with. Many other provinces have been reducing their personal income taxes. The minister had a choice within his budget in bringing further personal income tax reduction in, but he chose not to do that. And, you know, if we compare amongst our neighbors, provinces that we often compete with from investment as well as labor. I look at Alberta's basic personal exemption is around $21,000. Saskatchewan's is just over $18,000, and actually Saskatchewan increased theirs just over a year ago. Yet this minister is making our province less competitive compared to our western neighbors and less attractive by phasing out the basic personal exemption for those who earn income over $200,000. Manitoba, prior to when the PCs came in, had been in the top 5 provinces for the highest tax rate in the country, and increasing the basic personal amount brought us in more in line with what other provinces were doing, making us more attractive for investment and jobs and people moving into the province. So I'm just curious if the minister can say at what stage of the budget review process did he start to do comparisons when he knew other provinces were reducing taxes for their citizens?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'm grateful for this opportunity to be able to talk about the relief we're providing to Manitobans through tax measures that we brought in. And I am just unbelievably proud to be part of a government that's doing this important work. I think that resonates with Manitobans. They're seeing finally that they have a government that cares about the challenges they're facing. And, you know, I appreciate the comparisons that were offered by the critic and alluding to other jurisdictions, and it's good to look at what's happening next door, of course, but our government is focused on what's happening in Manitoba and how we improve life here and how we make life more affordable. And I would suggest to the critic that's exactly what we did with our budget. We brought in a significant amount of tax relief. That's not spin, that's just the hard reality of the situation. And I think it's maybe surprising, or it seems to be surprising for the members opposite, or they're still not fully embracing these fantastic changes that we brought forward that are benefiting Manitobans. And again, I'll review, I mean, just thinking, starting with the gas tax holiday, We had the lowest gas tax in the country, of course, with 0% for 12 months, or it will be for 12 months once this period that we've committed to is up. And we know that, I don't know, month after month after month, we had some of the lowest fuel prices in the entire country. Thanks to that. And, you know, that was confirmed and tracked through a number of means where we were able to confirm that those gas tax savings were indeed passed on month after month to Manitobans and put right in their pockets. Again, going to the $1,500 homeowner affordability tax credit, a phenomenal measure that has put, you know, in many cases, homeowners in a position where their school taxes are completely wiped. Broad middle tax cuts. Again, you know, it's one thing to talk about tax cuts in theory that governments wanted to make before they were shown the door. It's another thing for government to actually take that action and to move forward with that. And we did that for a number of important reasons. It wasn't just simply to, of course, make life more affordable. I have heard the critic allude to the importance of competitiveness and ensuring that we are positioned to be competitive. That is very important. So I agree with the importance of us becoming a much more competitive jurisdiction. And that's exactly why we took those actions, because we know that there is a broader context in which we're operating. So that is important. But again, you know, this is about affordability first and foremost, and making life more affordable for people right here in our province. Of course, the development of you know, tax proposals and our approach as a government was also integrated into our broader budgetary planning processes, where we are turning the page on 7.5 years of cuts from a PC government. And frankly, you know, that budgetary development, which of course needs to balance making life more affordable for Manitobans with making investments, is something we take very seriously. Unfortunately, what we saw, and which was sort of confirmed when we saw the release of public accounts not so long ago, was the results of Manitobans having a government in place, the previous PC government, that just did not have the capacity to budget in a way that was responsible. And I've said it many times in the House, I'll say it here again, you know, we as members of different parties take positions sometimes that you know, sometimes are rooted in political and just the political, and maybe there's a skepticism about our claims about their mismanagement, but they don't have to take our word for it. We did a review and had MNP rather do a review, a very respected accounting firm that outlined the impacts of 7.5 years of PC mismanagement, and unfortunately the impacts of that final budget year and some of the decisions they were making and how that led us to being in a fiscal ditch. Proud we've got a new government here making good decisions around how to reduce costs for Manitobans that are balanced with their needs, like improving affordability in healthcare.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I appreciate the Minister's comments about tax competitiveness. However, clawing back the basic personal amount for many Manitobans is not tax competitive when other provincial jurisdictions, particularly the ones to our western neighbors, when they're increasing those at a time when we're trying to recruit labor into this province. So I've now asked the Minister twice this week, and perhaps he can give me doesn't have to be an exact number, but you know, around, you know, relatively exact number will do. How many Manitobans earn between $200,000 and $400,000? Are we looking at 50,000 Manitobans? Are we looking at 100,000 Manitobans? If the Minister can provide me an approximate number, please.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. The impacts of our last budget are enormous, and we see that I think every single day when myself and my colleagues are out in communities. And one of the best parts about this budget is that it's not just helping, middle-income Manitobans or those who are maybe on fixed incomes. It's helping everybody. And if we look at the package overall of savings that have been put together here, I mean, we've got 21 ways to save, as I'm sure the critic loves hearing us talk about. Maybe not every day, but this is a long list here that altogether has put, again, a huge amount of money back into the pockets of Manitobans. Again, not just from one income category, across the entire income spectrum. And when we look at that broader package of benefits together, whether you're a high income earner in Manitoba, you're benefiting from those personal income tax bracket increases. You're benefiting from that BPE change. You're benefiting from that affordability tax credit on your home. You're benefiting from the gas tax holiday. You might be benefiting from $10 a day childcare all year round, or maybe you're benefiting from if you're trying to expand your family, the doubling of the fertility treatment tax credit. That's one that I know that is just so unbelievably meaningful to so many in this province that have been struggling to grow their family. So again, altogether, when we look at this as a package, we see what we see here really is evidence of how connected we are to the needs of everyday Manitobans. And we see that altogether, again, it's not just helping people, middle-income Manitobans. It's not just helping those who are maybe facing greater income struggles at the lower end of this income spectrum. It's helping everybody, even those who are maybe doing a little bit better. With this full package of savings that we're bringing forward, everybody is saving. And so, that's something that, again, the previous government, we know that they really ignored the needs of lower income and middle income Manitobans generally in their work. And we're focused maybe only on some. We're focused on everyone. And you can see that in terms of the measures we've brought forward. Now, in terms of the impacts of our approach and what's happening, one of the things we're seeing is Manitoba is experiencing, as our Premier says often, as I've said in front of microphones here and abroad, that we are experiencing, and this is what we hear from others who are looking to Manitoba and are seeing all these incredible things happening. Little old Manitoba stepping up and just knocking it out of the park day after day is growth in our economy. That Stats Canada report that we saw recently spoke to the fact that we're seeing thousands of new private sector jobs. Thousands, like well over 3,000 new private sector jobs that were created in 1 month in September. And that number, that job growth number, placed Manitoba at the very top of all provinces in the entire country in terms of job growth. So again, we had the fastest job growth of any province in the entire country in September. So while there's an attempt at creating a narrative about what might happen when an NDP government is elected, what we're seeing here is the opposite of what the members opposite are trying to put forward on the record, whether it's in the House or here. It's indisputable. It's not the Manitoba NDP that operates Stats Canada. We're not, forcing them to publish data that's speaking to these the impacts of our approach to governance. That's real, and that success we expect to continue, thanks to the good work that we're doing and thanks to the increasingly attractive place that Manitoba is becoming under our guidance, under our government.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. And just to correct the record, the former PC government removed more than 50,000 low-income Manitobans off the tax rolls while in government and increased social benefits and rent assistance. But this was a very, very simple question to the minister that I had asked, and I find it shocking that he doesn't know how many Manitobans he has impacted by creating the $200,000 income tax threshold when he's starting to claw back the personal basic amount. So I'd appreciate if the minister would take that under advisement to get that information to me.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Again, I love talking about the savings that we're bringing for Manitobans. Huge numbers of Manitobans, the vast majority of Manitobans who are saving under the measures that we brought forward here. And I think that's what we need to emphasize here is that we're talking about, again, first of all, every Manitoban is benefiting from the 21 measures that we brought forward. We're making life more affordable in so many different ways, but the benefits, I think the member is really focusing in on just one aspect of our broader affordability plan here, but doesn't seem to be acknowledging the broader impacts that these savings are going to have. And I'm happy to just draw their attention, if they're interested. Our budget document on page 41 puts those savings in, prints them clearly for all to see here. If they're interested, a two-income family with two kids that gain access to the affordable childcare through our plan, $6,443, $6,443 they stand to save under our plan. Maybe it's a two-income family with one child that are hoping to use fertility treatment to grow their family. They stand to save on average $4,982. And then maybe it's another family with two kids, two incomes, and they want to buy a new EV. That family would save $6,109 thanks to the measures that we brought forward. So it's so important to talk about these things instead of just looking, with a microscope at only one of the measures we've taken to save costs for Manitobans, to put them together and to see when you look at this as a package, it's essentially providing savings to all Manitobans across the province. And for some, as I've outlined, they stand to save in a huge way by taking advantage of some of those offers like the EV rebate, or if you've got young kids, getting access to, again, affordable childcare, or if you want to grow your family and you're looking to access fertility treatments. Again, thousands and thousands of dollars going into their pockets. And so, this is something that we're proud of. Again, I asked the member to think about things, just if you look at the whole package that we brought forward here, she'll see it doesn't matter who you are in this province. you're going to have a bunch more money in your pocket thanks to these measures. And we're proud of that. And I struggle sometimes to understand why the members opposite don't just want to get on board and celebrate these 21 ways to save, to get on the affordability train here that's left the station, and they can join us and talk about, how they could share with their own constituents some of these great measures that are here for them to take advantage of. And I know that many folks in the critics community would be delighted to hear about these measures and to take advantage of them. And maybe even in their community, there's some producers who are reliant on Crown lands. It's not just regular Manitobans. It's also folks that are producing food for us here in the province. We haven't left them out either. They for years had their costs increase. I think, and hopefully I'm getting this number right, but I think it's about 300% increases in the cost of Crown land that were brought forward overall through some of the Crown land lease increases that the last government brought forward, again, which is having an impact not just on those farmers, on those producers, but also downstream. If they're making it more expensive to produce food, that's going to be just, those costs will just get passed on down the line. So, acknowledge the warning, Mr. Chair. These are altogether, this is an unbelievable package. This is a package that, again, is focused on the needs of everyday Manitobans, the realities that they're facing, and we're going to continue doing that work. It doesn't end here. We know that affordability challenges continue, and we're proud to continue doing that work to find new ways of delivering on that. Mike?
Member for Midland.
Okay, so I understand that the minister doesn't have the answer to a very simple question. So I expect that has been taken under advisement and that he will get me the number of Manitobans that make an income over $200,000. I'll now ask the minister again, how many Manitobans earn over $400,000 in our province? And if he doesn't have that number, which he should because these are major tax changes that are impacting Manitobans, if he could also take that under advisement, please.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's great to have this opportunity to talk about our budget and our revenue measures and the work that we're doing to make life more affordable. And one of the things I started talking about in a previous answer, but I didn't have the opportunity to really dig into, was just the importance of, in developing budgets, doing that in a way that's balanced and ensuring that it's, you're not only delivering on the goals and the commitments that you as a government have made to Manitobans, but that you're doing that in a balanced way. And so when we're talking about revenues and we're talking about the work of making life more affordable, as a government, when we make those types of decisions, we make those decisions and we have made decisions in a way that reflected that balance, where we do everything we can to improve affordability. And again, we balance that with fiscal needs and our fiscal situation. And one of the things that we saw under the previous government was a failure to do that. Never mind a failure to actually deliver on making life more affordable through tax measures, through tax cuts, through doing those types of things, which we're doing. But they failed to really budget responsibly and to take measures of any kind to make life more affordable, never mind balancing those types of measures with other investments. And, after, again, we'd been in for a short period of time in recognition of what we saw happening with the previous government's budget that we were left with and the direction of spending, we undertook, as I'd mentioned earlier, to have a review done by the accounting firm MNP, which is a respected accounting firm that I don't think could be accused of being partisan in any way. And I want to just read a summary from the executive summary, rather, that they put forward in that review. And I'll just read that here. Quote, "From the release of the 23-24 budget to October 3rd, 2023, budgetary decisions were made that collectively represent high budgetary risk." And that report went on to conclude that, quote, "It was reasonable to expect the government to have understood that all the unique circumstances that led to significantly higher revenues in 22-23 would not repeat in subsequent years." And then, just going further, the review also found, quote, again, these are not our words, these are the words of an independent consultant, which I'm sure the members opposite really appreciate. "The decision to aggressively budget for an above average net income from hydro and then fail to adjust for the significant downside risk to hydro's net income in the first quarter update led to additional fiscal pressure later in the year." And then, that's end quote. And then we do know that the report went on to outline that the Health Human Resource Action Plan funding that was announced in the weeks leading up to the October 3rd election was not accounted for in public reporting. And ultimately, MNP found, quote, that it led to an incomplete picture of the province's fiscal pressures, end quote. So I, like many Manitobans, I was frankly disturbed when I learned about the extent to which the former government distorted, made unclear. I'll try to use parliamentary language here, or stick to parliamentary language, all to say what was clear was that when they came to Manitobans on July 28th to provide a Q1 update prior to the last election, they did not disclose the reality of the situation. MNP made that clear, outlined, the various, I'll say, shortcomings of that Q1 update, where they did not update Manitobans that while they budgeted $550 million of hydro profits, that even though it was a drought year and it was clear that we were headed towards a very difficult place, nothing was reported. And where did hydro end up in that same fiscal year, which was clear at that point? Negative $150 million. So That represents a very concerning sort of pattern we saw from them, a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability. Manitobans can expect better from us, and they can expect better while we make life more affordable through the type of work that we brought forward in our last budget.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
Again, I find it shocking that the minister has no idea how he came up with a $200,000 threshold to start clawing back the basic personal amount. He has no idea how many Manitobans actually earn an income of over $200,000, and he has no idea how many Manitobans earn an income of over $400,000. So clearly, he doesn't know the answers to the impact his tax grabs are having on many, many Manitobans. So I'm going to switch gears here. On page 101 of the budget, under borrowing and debt management strategy, can the minister please walk me through the province's long-term and short-term issuances, the number of long-term, the number of short-term, and how many will be maturing by March 31st of 2025?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, I didn't get to finish in my last response because we were limited by the 5-minute clock. I could talk about PC financial mismanagement for hours, but I've got to cram it into these 5-minute blocks, unfortunately. The MNP report spoke to those concerns, again, that were outlined at a high level in through those quotes I read. But I just want to go back to that July 28th Q1 update that the PCs provided prior to the last election, and just why it was so concerning from a transparency perspective. And I think we can, just point to, we've talked about hydro, the fact that clearly by any measure, there was an attempt in that budget year to really exaggerate potential hydro profits. Again, they budgeted $550 million for that for the 23-24 fiscal year, which by any measure is an exceptional number. And again, that's a polite way of characterizing it. And ultimately was likely unachievable. And even though they, we had this mounting drought situation in late July when they went out, July 28th, we'd had experienced one of our worst droughts in recent memory. Up to that point, they went out to Manitobans on July 28th and provided a fiscal update that did not account for the reality of the situation and glossed over the fact that hydro was headed for a very nasty result, which they knew about already, but again, which they decided not to reveal to Manitobans. And again, I recognize the critic was not necessarily part of that strategy or didn't design that herself, but it is worth mentioning that that's the party that she's part of here, and that was their approach. Now, I've talked about the hydro piece there, but there are other very serious things that were, again, not brought forward to Manitobans on July 28th when they did that Q1 update. One example of that was the fact that we knew that year, due to no question, I think concerns around PC management as a government, but also broader economic forces, tax revenues were changing in a big way. They would have had clarity on the direction of those revenue changes. There's no question. I know as the finance minister, we receive routine updates about the direction of revenues, tax revenues, and they would have known going in that ultimately the numbers that they were presenting to Manitobans were way off, and yet again failed to bring those forward in an attempt, and I would argue a rather crass attempt at, again, I want to stay within parliamentary tradition here, not fully representative of the fiscal reality that we were facing due to their poor budgeting skills. And the fact that this happened just prior to an election speaks to, I think the concern that we've repeatedly brought forward, which is Manitobans can't feel confident when the members opposite are steering the ship, that the information they're getting is accurate. And that's certainly what we saw. And never mind the fact that on July 28th, when they brought that forward, the day prior, they had announced a multi-$100 million investment, which was not included in their fiscal update. And so, when we talk about how did we get to a $2 billion deficit in 23-24, that's how we do it, Honourable Chair. That's how you get to that kind of a terrible result, through a mix of bad budgeting, really, and then through that process, even again, seeing the direction of things, a lack of transparency, ended up shocking Manitobans in the end, who realized that things were not as they've been made to think they were. In terms of this question about investments and how we manage the Treasury, I'm delighted to talk more about that. I can say that we have an unbelievably strong team in finance, as I'm sure the critic will agree. incredible civil servants who are doing really great work and keeping our cost of capital as low as possible. And I would delight in an opportunity to talk about investment further in a future answer.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
A 5-minute answer with not a single answer to one of my questions. My question was about the number of long-term and short-term issuances for the province's debt management strategy and how many are maturing this year. So either the minister doesn't understand how the province is managing its issuance and debt strategy, or he doesn't have those numbers, but in his own budget document, and I already referred to page 101, the minister can look it up himself. It mentions in January 2024, the province increased its promissory note program to authorize the issuance of up to $1.5 billion and intended to increase the liquidity available to the province. It talks about long-term markets. It talks about benchmark size issuance in 10-year and 30-year terms. So my question is how many are going to be maturing this year? How many short-term has the government gone into in the past year? You know, whether the province goes into long-term or short-term at a period of high interest rates can significantly affect Manitoba's debt and also its borrowing costs. So if the minister can please give me a number, and I'll say this information, not easy to find on the Government of Manitoba's website. It's a very quick Google search for Ontario, and they give a list of every single issuance the province of Ontario has, whether it's long-term, short-term, and how many are maturing. So since I couldn't find it on the Manitoba government's website, can the minister just please answer the question and give me a number of long-term issuance, short-term issuance, and how many are maturing by the end of this fiscal year?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I appreciate an opportunity to talk about treasury management and debt management, and appreciate the importance of those questions and the fact that the critic's digging into that. Thank her for an opportunity to speak about that. And I can say that as the finance minister, I appreciate the importance of approaching that debt management, that treasury management cautiously as being just an exceedingly important part about how we govern. And that's something that's critical because we know that in the long term, you know, the rates at which we issue debt will have significant impacts. And so it's very important that we get it right. And I'm confident that that work is being done in a manner that reflects our focus, which is ensuring that ultimately Manitoba pays as little as possible for that capital over the long term. One thing that I'm proud to speak about is when we talk about treasury management and how we issue debt, is how our decisions are received out in the world by those who are in many ways responsible for determining our cost of capital, which are credit rating agencies. And really happy to just speak to, just offer one. There were a long list of great quotes that we had after our last budget, and we're continuing to see great, I'll call them report cards from credit rating agencies about the approach that's being taken by our government. Example here, just one from S&P, a global report that they issued, where they stated, quote, "We believe the new government is committed to fiscal sustainability in the long term," end quote. Again, we see another quote here. We expect that following a notable deterioration of budgetary performance in fiscal 2024, which of course ties back to the last government's budget and the decisions that they made, the province's fiscal outcomes will steadily improve as the economy recovers and tax revenues rise, close quote. So, we're seeing, these are just a couple, again, quotes we saw from S&P. There are many others where we see this, I'll say, stamps of approval from these credit rating agencies who are seeing that not only are they pleased with the budget that we released and they're pleased with the way that that demonstrates a commitment to fiscal responsibility, but I think it's fair to say that that extends to our debt management strategies and our approaches, that they also believe that we are doing that work in a good way and in a way that will help to minimize our debt burden and ultimately the costs associated with that debt. Relating to that, I want to talk about, the broader importance of that work and how that extends to relationships with credit rating agencies who, again, are observing our debt management strategies and our approaches to budgeting. And just to talk about how wonderful it's been for me in this role to develop strong relationships with investors and those that are lending Manitoba money. We have placed, and I know the Premier has placed, an incredible degree of importance, of heightened importance on those relationships and building strong, trusting relationships with rating agencies and investors to ensure that they have confidence in us as a government. And it's been a really remarkable experience for me, really understanding that landscape at a deeper level. Developing those trusting relationships and really showing that our government is committed to fiscal sustainability in the long term. And we're seeing that, again, be borne out through the reports that are being issued about our fiscal decision making. And I suspect that those positive reviews will continue because we are deeply committed to fiscal responsibility. And that's incredibly important for a number of reasons. It's incredibly important, I think, first and foremost, because it's only through that we can deliver on those healthcare and affordability and education investment commitments that we made. We need to do that. So to the member's question, I will point her to the finance website, where there's a PowerPoint there that can be found called the Manitoba Investor Relation Presentation. It's a 22-page presentation that should have the answer to the questions that she's asking, or she can turn to page 104 of our budget for, again, a look at the debt maturity schedule, which will also provide her the information she's seeking.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
Thank you, Minister, and I will look at that. And I know that this is getting into the weeds, but it is such a key part of how Manitoba manages its debt management strategy. So staying on the topic of debt servicing and borrowing, Manitoba's debt profile and deficit is $33 billion in debt and over almost $2.2 billion in debt servicing costs, with a $2 billion deficit last fiscal, almost $1 billion this fiscal year. This leaves Manitoba as one of the more highly indebted provinces in the entire country. And with just over 10% of our revenue that's expected to go to interest costs, how much has the recent interest rate cuts are going to reduce the actual debt servicing costs from what your department has projected? And when will those interest rate cuts start to impact interest costs? Like, are we looking at 2025, 26? Are we looking at 2026, 27? The minister could please answer that question.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's great to have a chance to talk about debt management and the good work that's being done to keep our cost of capital as low as possible by our government and by the teams that are here to support us. I think it's important just when we're talking about borrowing, it's of course, why are we needing to borrow or issue debt? It's due to our financial needs and our needs to operate, but it's also driven by, of course, the member opposite has talked about the impacts of debt servicing, and I think it's a good reminder of the damage that was done through that $2 billion deficit that we were left at. Those are dollars that are now ending up again on that on our debt and our costs that we're going to continue to have to pay as a result again of their mismanagement and their failure to budget responsibly. Further to that, one of the things I think is worth highlighting here is the importance of responsible capital management. And one of the things I'm really proud of is first of all, the investments that our government has outlined and that speak to, again, the fact that we're a listening government, that we understand the types of capital investments that Manitobans want to see made in this province to improve life, to improve access to the services and the things that they need. But again, in relation to that, one of the things we have to ensure is that we're responsible in making those capital investments. And I think that our budget does exactly that. So I have a lot of opportunities to talk about the fact that our core budget itself was, struck a great balance between making life more affordable, investing in healthcare, while still keeping an eye on our fiscal commitments to balance the budget in our final year of our first mandate. But we also did, I think, took a similarly responsible approach, a forward-looking approach, a sustainable approach when it comes to capital. And the budget document spells out that we're making $1.7 billion in capital investments this year, and it also spells out our approach in black and white for all to see in future years as it relates to capital investments as well. And one of the things that I think that we did well here was to, again, as a very fiscally responsible government, focus in on fine-tuning that number, 1.7, at a level that we knew was responsive to the needs that we have here in Manitoba, but that again was responsible, and that would ensure that from a credit rating agency perspective, from a debt perspective, that we were moving forward in a way that was most importantly sustainable. And unfortunately, that's something that we did not see from the former government. We saw, beyond the printed capital numbers, we saw a number of commitments around capital that were never budgeted for, that I think spoke to, frankly, again, that core lack of focus on fiscal sustainability, making promises to Manitobans that were never budgeted. A lot of them that really, I think, frankly, were setting people up for a lot of disappointment, unfortunately, because they, at the end of the day, were making promises that they just had no plan to pay for. That's not how you govern. That's not how you lead, and that's certainly not a good way of keeping in good stead with Manitobans who want to know when a government says they're going to do something, that they're actually going to deliver on their promises, and that they're not going to make unbudgeted commitments that they have no plan to pay for. That's not how you govern. And so, again, going back, the heart of the question really is around treasury management, good fiscal management, how we manage debt. That ties back, of course, that debt's driven by how well a government manages its books. We're doing a great job of that. Unfortunately, the last government did not, and they created greater pressures there than were unfortunately desired. So that's that's a key concern. We're doing that right. We're approaching that debt management in a responsible way. I do want to point the member to just page 104 of the budget document. The last paragraph, Manitoba is forecasting an average interest rate of term borrowings through 24-25 to be 4.2%. And then it goes on to outline what the impact of a 1 percentage point increase there. I think that could be used as a good sort of measuring stick for some of the potential benefits we might see if things go in the opposite direction in the months and years to come.
Member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. As we're running close in time, I'll keep this question short, and I hope the minister can and has the ability to keep his answer short, because 5-minute answers on essentially nothing from what I've asked, with the exception of a 15-second at the very, very end. So the NDP has approved $8.5 billion in borrowing for general purposes, $750 million in borrowing for Manitoba Hydro, $710 million in borrowing through a special warrant for health and education spending. That's a whopping $9.25 billion in approved borrowing. So can the minister please inform us what the interest costs are on his $710 million special warrant?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I love talking about the good work that's happening in Treasury Management by our team, and the fact that we're doing everything we can to keep the cost of capital as low as possible, and that's incredibly important. And that's being delivered on, not, of course, only through good overall budgetary management and good management of our capital costs, but just also being driven by, again, great trusting relationships that we're developing with investors through, again, a focused effort by the Premier, by myself, by our teams, the incredible people working in our Treasury Division, and my deputy and the team around him, in really building those trusting relationships that helps to ensure that those folks that are lending us money have confidence in the leadership of this province, that we are committed to what we say we're committed to, which is delivering on a fiscally sustainable approach. And again, our commitment around that is clear. We have spoken publicly about our commitment to a balanced budget in our final year of our mandate repeatedly, and it's something I know that I can share here that is of an unbelievable level of importance for the Premier and for our team. And every day, we make strides towards ensuring that we deliver on those commitments as made. And that's incredibly important for a number of reasons, but it's especially important for the reasons I think that the critic is driving at, which is, how do we ensure that that we're keeping those costs of capital as low as possible. Unfortunately, again, it was a challenging period of 7.5 years that we had there under their leadership, where we saw, I guess you'd say, just a loosening of the reins, or I don't know how to characterize it, again, using parliamentary language, but where things just kind of got a bit out of control, if you will, over the last couple of years, especially under the Heather Stephenson government during her tenure. That's when I think things really took a turn for the worse. We did see under the, during that 7.5 years, we did see credit rating agencies lower credit ratings under the tenure of the PCs early on. But again, the damage that they did was highlighted there with the public accounts release that really spoke to the way that they approach budgetary management, which was unfortunately not with an eye on fiscal sustainability. And now we had to dig ourselves out of that hole. That created significant challenges. And of course, for credit rating agencies who are looking to Manitoba and trying to understand what was happening, really helping them to just get a clear line of sight on how the former government approached things and how we're different. So we've done that work, and I can say with confidence now that I'm proud that credit rating agencies have developed, I think, and continue to develop that trust in us, again, not just due to that relationship building, but also because of the work that they see us doing, the budget that we put forward, our approach on capital, and that's benefiting us day in and day out, and will continue to. And I'll say, overall, this question about Treasury management and our approach, I can say for the member, we're very opportunistic as it relates to taking advantage of these opportunities that are opening up. And I'll expect us to continue doing that. That's critical, that we do take advantage of these opportunities that we're seeing as a result of these lowering interest rates. Manitobans stand to benefit from us being very strategic and very, again, opportunistic about leveraging those interest rate drops to the greatest extent we possibly can. And, in terms of the specifics around debt servicing costs, I would invite the member to turn to page 7 of our budget document, which spells out very clearly information relating to that. And then also, if they're interested in future fiscal year borrowing requirements, page 103 of the budget document also spells those out and should provide her with some of the insights that she's seeking here today at committee.
Thank you, Minister. A member for Midland.
Thank you, Chairperson. The NDP government was left with a $373 million surplus, and they turned that into a $2 billion deficit because of their overspending. They're the ones that approved the $710 million special warrant. They're the ones that approved $750 million for Manitoba Hydro. They're the ones that approved over $9 billion in borrowing. So I'm pleased that the minister has referenced the credit rating document that he did earlier. As I mentioned, with just over 10% of our revenue expected to go to interest costs, our credit ratings are incredibly important. Last year, I believe our ratings were A+ stable from S&P, A high from DBRS, and AA2 from Moody's. So I asked the minister how confident he is that Manitoba will not be downgraded, and what is his financial management strategy to ensure a downgrade doesn't happen. That exact document that he referenced showed that Manitoba could return to balance by 2026. Our interest costs and interest ratings will be reflected by whether Manitoba is downgraded or not, and the minister will know, if you're downgraded 2 points, then you're now a investor risk province. So how confident is he that our ratings will not be impacted this year?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I do appreciate an opportunity to talk about the important work we're doing to rebuild trust with rating agencies that were, in many ways, probably made to feel pretty concerned by the decisions that were being made by the last government that left, I'll say, a trust gap, if you will, with the decision-making that was happening here in Manitoba. And, you know, that's certainly something that we had to focus on repairing and was a key priority for us. We have, as I said, we've been developing these fantastic relationships with investors, and we've had to a certain extent, dig our way out of a hole here that had been created by the former government, driven in many ways by the gigantic $2 billion deficit that they left Manitobans. So, you know, I know that there's talk at times about some kind of a surplus last fiscal, but I'll remind the member that 23-24 was a budget that was designed by the Conservatives. I recognize that she wasn't there during that time, but that doesn't change the reality of the situation that the 23-24 budget was a budget that was designed entirely by the Heather Stefanson team, and that we were left with when they were, unfortunately for them, and I'm sure there was a desire for a different outcome, but when they were shown the door on October 3rd from the ledge, from government. And so we continue to do the good work of building those strong relationships with investors. There are, of course, three key agencies that provide ratings for Manitoba: Moody's, S&P, and DBRS. And you know, just in terms of, I think the critic was sort of asking, well, how are things going, and where are we likely to end up here? I'm happy to speak to that. And what I can say is that in June, we had our most recent sort of credit updates from Moody's and S&P, both of whom provided favorable reviews of our government and our fiscal management. And very recently, I know we had our recent sort of round of discussions with DBRS. And while we've yet to see the report from those discussions, we are expecting a similarly favorable review from them as well. And I want to thank my officials and teams that continue to develop those great relationships and ensure that we're showing with transparency what our government is doing and what we plan to do looking forward to ensure we can continue to have their confidence. So again, we can have that benefit of having those good credit rating agencies, credit ratings rather, to ensure that our cost of capital stay as low as possible. You know, and that work is going to of continuing to sustain those credit ratings will be driven by continued good fiscal management, which I think we've made clear Manitobans can expect, and of course by extension credit rating agencies can expect. So we're sending that really important signal, a signal that was not sent under the Heather Stefanson government with clarity. We are committed to balancing our budget. And that signal, I think, is translating into favorable, or access to favorable terms in the market when we go out to borrow money to meet the needs that Manitobans have and to deliver on our commitments. And we're seeing not only good results in the domestic markets, domestic borrowing market, but also internationally. So what we've seen is a very positive response to our budget. I think that positive response reflects the confidence that investors have that we are good fiscal managers and that the plan we put forward is a credible, sustainable one. And I think that's going to benefit us in a huge number of ways. And I think, you know, what we're seeing, thanks to, I think, the approach that our government is taking, is continued economic growth. Those Stats Canada results speak to that. Thousands of new private sector jobs, lowering inflation. Also, 863 new healthcare workers, doctors, nurses. People are coming here because they're seeing that we're having a Manitoba moment. We've got a good fiscally responsible government that's delivering on better healthcare, better affordability, and we're making our province better day after day.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Midland.
You know, I love these opportunities where I can keep correcting the minister what he puts on the record, because $373 million surplus is what the former PC government left him with, and he turned that into a $2 billion deficit. So in the credit rating document that the minister himself has referenced this afternoon, it says that Manitoba can return to balance by 2025. The minister has flat out refused to even try to balance. We're looking at an $800 million deficit this year. He's planning more years of deficits. If I look at this budget document, the total money forecasted to receive from Fed transfers in upcoming fiscal year is $8.2 billion. That's an increase of almost $1 billion from previous year forecasts. That's not only a massive increase from the budget, but also a massive increase from the forecast. So if I look at over the 3-year projection, revenues are going to be up by $2.5 billion plus the $1 billion from this year from Fed transfers. So if the minister is using his own budget and that ends up being accurate, he's going to be taking in excess of $3.5 billion in revenue. So because this is their first crack at fiscal management, I think that Manitobans should have no confidence in this government. And so again, I'm going to ask the minister, I've asked it in question period, I'm going to ask it again, will the minister commit to balance by 2026 public accounts, yes or no?
Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I guess, you know, it is important. I did speak to this earlier, but I just want to repeat for the critic. And anyone who's watching, I know there may be people at home who are just tuning in now who may have missed me highlighting the MNP review that was done, that might want to hear about this independent review that spoke to the financial decisions that were made by the previous government. So as much as I know there's a desire to talk about you know, the fiscal conditions that were left to us, unfortunately there's a very strong report that's been developed by an independent accounting firm that does not agree with the picture that's being put forward by the member opposite here. And so again, I'll just repeat for her and for anyone who's tuning in to this this committee, just a quote from that report. Again, quote, "From the release of the 23-24 budget to October 3rd, 2023." And I'll remind that I'm going to get out of the quote here and say that that budget was not our budget. That was the PC budget. I'm getting back here into the quote. "Budgetary decisions were made that collectively represent high budgetary risk." And that report went on to state, quote, "It was reasonable to expect the government to have understood that all of the unique circumstances that led to significantly higher revenues in 22-23 would not likely repeat in immediately subsequent years." And then again, it goes on, quote, "The decision to aggressively budget for an above average net income from Manitoba Hydro and then fail to adjust for the significant downside risk to Hydro's net income in the first quarter update led to additional fiscal pressure later in the year," end quote. This is the reality of what the PCs left Manitobans. It wasn't a surplus, it was a $2 billion deficit driven by bad decision
Order,
making.
please. The hour being 5 p.m. Committee rise.
That's all you have to do.